Hey Nintendo fans, and welcome to Weekly Nintendo News. At least that's what I would be saying if I actually did follow regular Nintendo news this week, but like many of you, my entire week was consumed by the all-powerful Twitch Plays Pokémon. And seeing as we finally completed Twitch Plays Pokémon Red, I figured why not take some time to reminisce on my top 10 favorite moments from the original stream.
For those of you who are still wondering what the heck Twitch Plays Pokémon is, this thing is by far one of the most interesting media phenomenon I've witnessed in a long time. The concept is deceptively simple. Run a twitch.tv stream of the original Pokémon Red, but turn the chat into a controller. By inputting left, right, BA, and start into the chat, a program would read the commands and put them into the game. It started out as a simple concept, but when tens of thousands began showing up as the story of the experiment spread, things got a little interesting. Twitch Plays Pokémon is arguably one of the worst games of Pokémon ever played. Several hours of the non-stop stream are just Red running in circles. There's up to a 30-second delay between giving an input and the program entering a command into the game. Navigating the menu is a nightmare, often leading to several helpful items being tossed early. Catching Pokémon is a nightmare, teaching moves is often a disaster, and don't even get me started on the PC. The overall gameplay of Twitch Plays Pokémon was so bad that the Reddit community banded together and began giving plot and story reasons for several of the nonsensical things that happened in the stream. And it was this community that really got me hooked on the experience. Suddenly, some of the game's most boring aspects, such as cutting down a single tree, became an hour-long endeavor that was somehow exciting. I know what some of you are thinking. How on earth did up to 100,000 players cooperate in some of the game's hardest tasks, such as getting through the Safari Zone or Victory Road? And honestly, we kind of had to cheat to do it. The creator eventually installed a secondary mode of the game called Democracy, where players voted on single actions one at a time. Players would vote between the original mode, now called Anarchy, and Democracy to progress. And while I believe Democracy to be an extremely boring mode that should have been only used very cautiously for very difficult puzzles, we crunched on it a few more times than I would have liked. But while Democracy was an unfortunate addition to the game's original chaotic mode, we were in the original Anarchy mode long enough for some really crazy things to happen, both good and bad, that I will never forget. Here's my personal top 10 moments from the original Twitch Plays Pokémon stream.
Number 10.
The Route 9 ledge. Route 9 is an example of something that the player with half a brain would have no issue with. However, give thousands of people the power to control one character, and the result is a disaster. The killer of Route 9 is this ledge right here. If you hit down once while in this straight, it's back to the bottom with you. And with thousands of players, somebody is gonna hit down. Almost every time. And then when you finally get around the maze, guess what? You have to go down. But combine that with a few other missteps, and you'll find yourself going down one of these two false downward paths, leaving you stuck to redo the entire process. We got stuck in ledge hell for over 8 hours. Who would have thought that simply walking would be such a spectator sport? These first set of ledges were a major hurdle.
Number 9.
The Burglar. Cinnabar's Pokémon Mansion was not one of our high points. With so many Pokémon that know poisoning moves, and no reliable way for Anarchy to cure it, we died all the time. But arguably the worst moment is when we discovered this deadly glitch. Battling this burglar at the right moment can leave you locked. With no escape, no Pokémon with dig, and no competent way to use escape rope, we were forced to grind on random encounters until our entire party fainted, setting us all the way back once more. It was painful and unusual, but morbidly hilarious. Though, one does have to wonder, where did this guy's partner go?
Number 8.
The capture of Zapdos. This one is the only event that I missed while sleeping, but it's such a huge event in the game that I can't help but be impressed. The fact that we were able to 1. Hold on to the Master Ball without tossing it, 2. Battle Zapdos in Anarchy mode without fleeing and losing it forever, and 3. Actually navigating to the menu and throwing the thing is a miracle. Although, when we finally get to what happened after we captured Zapdos, miracle might not be the right word to use here.
Number 7.
Lieutenant Surge. 2 incredible things happened with our battles with Surge. 1, somehow getting through his brutal electric lock puzzle faster than many single humans, and 2, the incredible battle with Surge himself. Only by using a pro bind did our trusty Charmeleon Abby K hold on to a sliver of life before downing Surge for good.
Number 6.
Giovanni Battle 1. In our first meeting with Giovanni, the battle for the Silphscope was one of the most stressful of the entire series. Left with just our trusty Bird Jesus Pidgeot, we battled through Giovanni's team up to Kangaskhan. You have to keep in mind, normally Bird Jesus only had 2 working attacks that could damage the enemy, but we had a lucky break. Sand Attack was out of PP. As we battled the final Kangaskhan, the worst happened. We began to use the useless Whirlwind attack, with just 1 attack left to drop Giovanni for good. And just when you thought it was all over, our savior held on with just 1 HP. Come on, guys. All we need is 1 more attack. 1 damaging attack. We're faster. We've got 1 last chance. And with this moment, 15,000 people left the stream in frustration. But this wasn't even the most memorable part of the experience for me.
Number 5.
The 360 no scope. What could be a bigger obstacle than defeating Giovanni? Our own Pokemon. It's so simple. With Giovanni gone, all we had to do was grab the Silphscope and make our way to Pokemon Tower. That's it. Then, as if straight out of Murphy's Law, the worst thing possible happened. We found a way to select Digrat and use the most loathed move of the playthrough. Dig. Free escape rope. And we're out of there. So depressing, so ridiculous, but ultimately, so rememberable.
Number 4.
ATV defeats Dragonite. Once again, I was unfortunately asleep as we completed the final Twitch Plays Pokemon run, but I was at least there for our first run past Lance. The conqueror here was arguably our team's weakest member, the Venomoth ATV, the all-terrain vehicle.
And it's all-terrain, dummy.
Despite having just our level 36 ATV to Lance's final level 62 Dragonite, ATV was able to exploit faulty Generation 1 AI. Dragonite thought Venomoth was weak to Psychic and proceeded to spam its Psychic-type moves, Barrier and Agility. All Venomoth needed to do was hit Dragonite with the Poison Powder, and the rest was history.
Number 3.
The Flareon Chronicles. The Flareon Chronicle is one of the most interesting arcs in the history of Twitch Plays Pokemon. With 5 members in our party and no Pokemon to no Surf, the community had decided we would save our final party slot for the free Lapras given to you later in the game. All that was ruined when we got the game's Eevee instead. But not all hope was lost. We were close to Celadon's Mart and had the Water Stone in sight. The problem? We got the absolute worst stone. Fire, useless when considering we already had a Charmeleon. Then, perhaps even more impressive, we actually used the stone correctly, and Flareon was born. Immediately labeled the false prophet by the community, Flareon became the excuse for everything that went wrong following his creation. When the first Great Purge happened, and Abby K and our Rattata Jay Leno were released, Flareon was blamed as the conspirator. Then, both Drowsy and Flareon were deposited. Drowsy was renamed to the Keeper, labeled for his deed of holding the evil Flareon away from us in the PC. In an act only perfect for the community's lore, Flareon was released and Drowsy returned. And while many today debate whether or not Flareon was truly the root of all our problems, the fact stands. This arc led to some of the greatest fan art from the community to date. The only way we could have made sense of all this madness was with a fictional backstory, and it was incredible.
Number 2.
Bloody Sunday. If you thought Flareon caused us trouble, it was nothing compared to the terror of getting Zapdos into the party. In an attempt to get the magnificent Zapdos into our team, pure chaos ensued. We lost Pokemon after Pokemon in an attempt to operate the PC, including losing Digrat Raticate, Cabbage the Oddish, and Dux the Farfetch'd, 3 staple characters in our run up to this point. By the end of February 23rd, nearly a dozen Pokemon were released, including almost our entire Safari Zone findings. It was a massacre of massive proportions, leading many to question, is Zapdos truly a force of good when it caused more bloodshed than Flareon? In a crazy turn of events that almost saw Bird Jesus and even Zapdos himself released as well, it was one day I could not turn my head away from the screen.
Number 1.
The Revival of Helix. Early in the playthrough, we realized that while seemingly important items like the Moonstone and Nugget could be tossed at a moment's notice, the Helix Fossil, as an untossable key item, could never leave our grasp. It quickly became lore that the Helix fossil was our religion, and anything against our path was known as the Way of the Dome. The Helix fossil was deposited and recovered from the PC several times, but few believed we'd actually be able to make it to Cinnabar Island and revive the thing. In a beacon of light after the darkness that was Bloody Sunday, being able to revive our in-game god and fight alongside him was a touching moment. And while we got Ammonite a little too late in our journey to level him as high as some of our strongest Pokemon, he still had several great moments in combat. While we've just begun an all-new journey in Johto on the same stream, these 2 weeks of the original Twitch Plays Pokemon are some of the most memorable video gaming moments I've experienced in my life. Hopefully our new adventure will be as rewarding, fun, and chaotic as our last.
That's it for today's top 10, but if you liked what you saw, you can click this button right here to subscribe to my channel and get alerts right when my new videos are coming out. What I want to know from you Twitch Plays Pokemon followers is, are you excited for the new Twitch Plays Pokemon Crystal? Click here if you love the madness, can't wait to get more of it, or here if 2 weeks of straight streaming has been too much for you and you just need to put the screen down for once, get back to your regular life. Thank you guys as always for watching my videos, and I'll see you with the next one.